Oh, Jeremy Corbyn, what are you going to do now? That is probably the question on everyone's minds. Will Corbyn actually stand as an independent? And if he does, well, what platform is he going to run on? After all, he's going to have some form of policy. But MPs turning against their party and running as independents, how successful has that been? Well, historically, since 1945, both Labour and Conservative MPs who have gone on to stand as independents in their seats, running against their party, only 4 MPs in history since 1945 have actually been successful to defy their odds and go to be an independent MP. And even then, history goes on to show that the election afterwards doesn't tend to be that too successful because an independent is an independent. They stand on their own and they have almost next to no party backing. There is no chance of getting on committees, even less chance of other lefty Labour MPs probably allying with Jeremy Corbyn on certain subjects. That's just the out and out right fact. And a lot of people praising Jeremy Corbyn and wanting him to do this, to me, it just goes to show you why Corbyn was never a good leader. That the cult that was forming around him was going to always turn out to be very, very bad and detrimental to any sort of prospective Labour Party future. And like I say, Corbyn had to step down after 2019, after an absolutely disastrous electoral campaign. I'm sorry, there's no way you can frame that the 2019 general election campaign that Labour ran wasn't a complete and utter mess. Like I say, you go back and you look at it, it was a mess. And yet it was the biggest electoral defeat in Labour history. And yet Corbyn stood down, but there are other people who continue to say, no, he should have never have stood down, even though it was the biggest electoral defeat in election history. Those are just the facts, unfortunately. And I'm going to read some more hard facts because I really do not think that Corbyn should stand again. I really do not. I think, to be honest, he just needs to go, to be honest, at this point. You know, domestic policy wise, I agree with a lot of what Jeremy Corbyn says. Like, I agree pretty much domestically with everything Corbyn says. But when it comes to sort of foreign policy, that's where I have massive disagreements. I mean, if Corbyn had won in 2019 and we had gone into the, Ukrainian in the Ukrainian war, Corbyn is flat out refusing to send weapons, to send aid to Ukraine. I'm sorry, but that's completely and absolutely false. Jeremy Corbyn's pacifist stance at that point might as well be implicit to, well, supporting Russia. Because, as we've always said, when these people who say, oh, no, we really just want peace, well, what does peace actually look like? How do you ensure that Putin is going to follow any proposed peace plan that you put forward? How do you sort of get Putin to give up those territories that he has now claimed? There's all these questions that these people who are absolutely obsessed with the idea of peace, but peace at any costs, unfortunately, looks like you're siding with the aggressor. And I'm not saying, Jeremy Corbyn is a Russian agent or anything like that. But these people who proclaim peace at any cost do not seem to have the answers to be able to solve this. They instantly say, oh, we need to go to a ceasefire. Well, okay, how do you get to that point? How do you get to a ceasefire? What do you mean? And then what? What does your peace actually look like? There are massive problems. And we've talked about this before, but we're going a bit off track at the moment. But I want to read this because I think this really delivers some home truths to a lot of people. Like I say, this comes from The Guardian, and its title is Why the Odds Are Stacked Against Jeremy Corbyn, the Outsider. So here we are. So this is the part I want to go through. So election history is not encouraging for those planning an independent Corbyn campaign. Nearly all big party MPs who fight on in new colours go on to lose, including all 15 former Labour or Conservative MPs who stood against their parties back in 2019. And since 1945, only four incumbent Labour MPs have prevailed against their own party as independents. So this is where it stands. This is the hard truth that these people have to understand. They are going to be facing a massive uphill battle. And one of their hopes is that maybe Jeremy Corbyn can win the middle route, that he manages to split the vote. But Labour, and essentially the Labour Party, is far, far more stronger in Islington than it ever has been before. Certainly, even before Corbyn became its MP. So they've now got to battle and convince those Labour supporters that backing Corbyn is the right move to play. And they've got to convince enough people. But you run the risk, and I say this now to any person in Islington North, if you vote for Jeremy Corbyn, you run the risk of letting the Conservatives win. And I say that knowing full well this is unfortunately what tends to happen. History has a very nasty way of repeating itself. The worry is that Corbyn just has this star power that he has. He's a big name. So he pulls maybe enough, independents, maybe enough people away from the Labour Party to get away from their vote. But then who comes in second? Because if you pull away enough votes, then you open the door to potentially a Conservative victory. And I have to ask the residents of Islington North, do you think it's worth voting for Corbyn to allow the Conservatives in? And it may not even be the Conservatives. It may even prove to be like the Liberal Democrats that get in. And I have to ask, as people who sort of campaign and sort of want these things, what's the point? I'm sorry, but I think Corbyn's going to lose if he does run, and if he does win, what's he going to do? What's he going to do as an MP? I don't think he has a future beyond that particular general election, and I think at the next general election, well, I think he goes on to lose, because history does show that many of these MPs that do win as independents to back against their big party do go on to lose at the next one because they don't really have a lot to show for it. And there are dumb rumors going around, and I must say there are really dumb rumors going around, that the whole idea that what Corbyn should do is act as a big magnet, create his own party if he wins, and then start to pull the Labour left MPs away over to his party, that they now cross over to his party, and then Keir Starmer and Labour now have to deal with this brand new Corbyn insurgency, which in itself, again, is doomed to fail if he does even try anything like that. Like I say, those are sort of the rumors that I've been hearing. But yeah, as far as I'm concerned, Jeremy Corbyn should just leave frontline politics. He can go on to be a campaigner, excellent, fine. You go do that. But Jeremy Corbyn's time in sort of in frontline politics, I think, is probably well and truly over. So, like I say, those are the home truths. And I know there are a lot of people out there who still want Jeremy Corbyn. But as I've said before, I'm sorry, we've got to move on. We've got to look forward. We can't just look back and wish or fantasize about what could have been in, like, 2017. We've got to move on. We've got to look forward to the next general election, and we've got to make sure, because the only way you beat the Tories at the next general election is if you vote Labour. That's the only option. Or unless the SNP decide to drop independence and then start campaigning south of the border. And I don't see them doing that anytime soon. So, as always, thank you very much for watching. Please do remember to click on the like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, as always, thank you very much for watching. And of course, we'll see you all next time.